Welcome back to the Deep Dive. Today we've got a really fascinating and honestly quite dramatic set of source materials. We're diving into a detailed collection of recent global predictions and geopolitical analyses.
Right, and they come from a pretty unconventional channel. The
Yeah.
Clairvoyance, recent live visions, and commentary.
Exactly.
So our mission today is, well, it's critical. We're not here to validate prophecy, obviously, but to structure and distill the narrative. We're treating these claims as artifacts almost. See what patterns they might reveal about current global anxieties.
And the scope is huge, isn't it?
Oh, absolutely. Everything from supposedly confirmed natural disasters, specific terror attack predictions, right through to this sweeping theory on psychological conditioning, pitting the UFO threat against the AI reality.
It's intense, and the source material really jumps right in, doesn't it? It starts with this big hook, a prediction the source claims was immediately verified.
Yes, that's the springboard. It sort of sets the stage for credibility for everything else that follows in the material.
Okay, so let's start there. What was the claim?
So the source stated, apparently 3 days before this live commentary, that there'd be a strong earthquake in Asia. And then, crucially, it would be followed by a series of, 2 or 3 more shocks, probably in the same region.
Right, and the material says this happened just hours before their broadcast. How was it confirmed? We need the specifics here.
Okay, so the source is very clear on this, pointing to On-It news reports, citing the U.S. Geological Survey. The confirmation was a strong earthquake, magnitude 7.0.
Wow, 7.0.
Yeah, off the coast of the Philippines. Northern part of Cebu Island, specifically. And importantly, the reports mention casualties, evacuations, and warnings of aftershocks.
Which lines up exactly with the 2 to 3 more shocks part of the prediction.
Precisely. That's the connection the source makes.
So that initial, let's call it success claim, it then leads into more seismic warnings. Where next?
Yeah, it doesn't stop there. The focus then shifts quite dramatically, actually. After those Asian shocks, the prediction points to the Indian Ocean region.
The Indian Ocean.
Specifically, a large tremor linked to Madagascar, or the waters around it. So the suggestion is this wave of activity is, far from over.
Okay, so the Earth is shaking, but the sources suggest the geopolitical ground is about to break too. Let's shift gears, because this is where the analysis gets, well, really intense. Moving from geology to global conflict. The source says, quite starkly, the world is nearing the opening of war to other nations. The time for proxy wars, strategic games.
That's ending.
Yes, exactly. The material argues that these initial conflicts, mentioning Ukraine, Gaza, Iran casualties, they've served their purpose as leverage, perhaps. Now it's moving to something broader.
And what's the immediate flashpoint they identify?
The source points squarely to the Pacific. The Pacific. What kind of action are we talking about? A naval buildup or?
Something much faster, much more sudden. The prediction is for an instantaneous conflict-creating event.
Yeah.
Like a sudden seizure or occupation of an island, or maybe islands.
Wow. Any specific islands mentioned?
Well, the source mentions the Philippine Sea, Taiwan's proximity, but then clarifies it might actually be other, perhaps smaller, but strategically vital islands. The key is the suddenness, the aggression, enough to trigger an immediate global crisis.
And it's not just one flashpoint, is it? The source claims the West is prepping for more.
That's right. The claim is the West is actively preparing for 2 separate independent attacks or wars. Not just reacting, but preparing.
2. Okay. And is there a timeline attached to this preparation?
Yes, and it's chillingly specific. Official, large-scale prep for conflict, predicted to start around November, maybe mid-November.
And it's going to be public, visible.
Very visible. The material stresses this. Massive military buildup, highly public.
That visibility seems key to the prediction. The source says it will cause widespread private panic.
Exactly, because people will see nations, potentially including Poland, visibly getting ready for a real conflict, not just drills.
So it won't be deniable.
Well, the source suggests some will dismiss it, call it theatrical performance, more manipulation. But the visual evidence, massive military movements, will be enough to cause genuine fear among many.
And this panic, it connects to the why, doesn't it? The underlying geopolitical analysis in the source. Why war now?
It boils down to economics and leverage, according to this analysis. The U.S. economy and financial system are described as, well, deeply troubled.
Okay.
And you have BRICS nations, China, much of Asia, apparently turning away from the dollar. So the U.S. is losing economic clout, lacking strong bargaining chips.
So war becomes the tool.
War fought away from U.S. soil, yes. That's presented as the strategy. A way to maintain global dominance, maybe refocus internal issues outward.
A classic move, some might say. How does the source predict this will physically look?
Massive, official, very public ocean transport of military gear. We're talking tanks, artillery, hardware, visibly moving.
Where's it heading?
Primarily, the prediction says Middle East and Eastern Europe. And it notes Europe will also be supplying its own eastern borders, Poland mentioned again. It's a multinational, highly visible mobilization.
Okay, and then there's the Trump prediction. This is quite something. How does the source see his role changing?
Yeah, this is a big claim. It suggests a huge narrative shift. The idea is Trump fails to quickly end the Russia-Ukraine conflict, which the source believes was his plan.
Right.
And so he rapidly pivots from the dove of peace persona to becoming a war herald.
A war herald. So actively pushing for conflict.
Well, ostensibly still in the name of future peace, you know the rhetoric. But the immediate effect, according to the prediction, is the West fully embracing a conflict narrative led by him.
That sounds like an overwhelming push toward conflict. Does the source see any effective resistance within the West? Any pushback?
It predicts resistance, yes. Significant European politicians are expected to argue against it.
On what grounds?
Arguing that the U.S. is dragging Europe into a war mainly for U.S. and Israeli interests, not European security. But the source is quite skeptical about their chances.
Skeptical will succeed.
Yeah, expressing doubt these dissenting voices will have enough clout to actually stop the momentum towards conflict.
This all seems to lead back to that one piece of practical advice the source gives. The only real what you should do moment.
Exactly. It's direct and stark. Prepare cash.
Prepare cash. Why?
It's linked directly to seeing this public military buildup. The source basically says, when you see the tanks moving, the rhetoric shifting around mid-November, that's your signal. Ensure you have some basic financial resilience outside the digital systems, bracing for the instability this will likely cause.
Okay. Practical advice amidst the chaos. Let's move to the second major threat category identified.
Yeah.
Terrorism.
Right. Alongside the big geopolitical stuff, there's this prediction of a specific high-impact domestic threat.
What kind of threat?
A spectacular bomb attack or terrorist act, described not just as violence, but as a symbolic provocation, designed to have maximum social impact.
Okay, break that down. Location. Target.
Location. A major capital city, either in the U.S. or a prominent European one. Target. Very specific. A luxurious, elegant building or place,
Right.
Maybe a high-end conference venue, a historic district associated with wealth, somewhere many influential, wealthy people are gathered, owners, company heads, that sort of thing. The point is the symbolism, hitting the elite.
And the source frames this as a signal, right, of a hybrid war. Can you explain what the source means by that term here?
Yeah, in this context, hybrid war means the conflict isn't just on battlefields anymore. This attack, if it happens, is meant as a sign that Europe is infiltrated.
Infiltrated.
That its security, its institutions, especially its economic elite, are vulnerable to clandestine attacks, using terror to break morale, create instability at home, reinforcing the idea that nowhere is truly safe.
That makes sense in that context. Okay, let's shift to the final, and maybe the most complex part of this analysis, the whole UFO manipulation thesis.
Right, and this whole section was apparently sparked by a listener asking the Clairvoyant about some incoming strange object, maybe a UFO.
And the source immediately connects UFOs to the pandemic.
Exactly. Explicitly links the current UFO hype back to recent history. The source claims the recent plague, meaning COVID-19,
Right.
was a massive successful attempt to dominate freedom, instill fear, and force obedience to mandates. Essentially, a training exercise in submission.
A training exercise. And the source thinks people have caught on now.
That's the argument. They even mention supposed observations of empty hospital beds or tents, claiming it shows the crisis was exaggerated, or at least used primarily to teach obedience. So the logic follows. Since many people allegedly saw through that health crisis, authorities can't just pull the same trick again.
So they need a bigger scare. Is that why the alien threat is much more logical, according to this source?
Precisely. It shifts the threat to something external, existential, and crucially, almost impossible for the average person to verify or debunk. An alien civilization, an unknown, potentially all-powerful threat.
It's the ultimate fear tactic.
That's the claim. The next logical step to achieve universal compliance with whatever directives come next. Fear of the unknown, the ultimate unknown.
And the source claims there's evidence of active preparation for this. beyond just media saturation.
Yes, and this is where it gets quite specific and, frankly, pretty wild. The source cites reports. Now, we have to stress, these are claims within the source material.
Yep.
Reports of U.S. services dressing up as non-human entities.
Dressing up as aliens to do what?
To test public reaction, apparently, to see how people respond to the sight of an alien. Again, this is presented by the source as evidence.
Wow, okay, so that's a significant claim.
It is, and it's presented alongside the more observable stuff, like the total saturation of UFO topics in media, Congress, scientific journals over the past year or two. The overall argument is the narrative is being deliberately built, force-fed almost.
To prepare people mentally for this external threat scenario.
Exactly, which leads to the prediction about that mysterious incoming object.
The flying object, or rocky yet strange thing.
Yeah. That's seen as the engineered event. The prediction is its details will be impossible to see clearly from Earth, maybe hidden by the sun, maybe just too vague.
To keep the fear alive.
To ensure the narrative of a vague, persistent, unquantifiable alien threat just lingers, never fully confirmed or never fully denied, just hanging there.
And the ultimate goal of all this fear-mongering.
Panic. Pure and simple. Pushing people into such fear that they submit to any manipulation, any absurd directive from authorities, politicians who claim they're the only ones who can protect us from this, obvious alien threat.
Which brings us right to the core comparison the source makes. If actual ETs aren't the main threat, what is?
This is the real twist in the analysis. The source dismisses alien invasion, but says we are creating the aliens ourselves.
Meaning?
Humanoid robots, advanced AI. That's the existential threat we should be focused on, according to this perspective.
How are they a threat? In what way?
Not through war, not invasion. They'll dominate, the source predicts, simply because they're convenient, they're obedient, accurate, they'll never be hysterical.
Huh. So we make ourselves obsolete through convenience.
That's the chilling conclusion. Humanity willingly populates the Earth with its own manufactured semi-strangers. Aliens built for perfect compliance and efficiency, essentially replacing ourselves in the process.
That is quite a thought. Okay, we've covered a massive amount of ground here. From claims of confirmed quakes in Asia to impending global wars, possibly sparked in the Pacific, fueled by financial crisis.
Then the threat of symbolic high-impact terrorism, signaling a hybrid war. And finally, this overarching theory of mass psychological conditioning using a manufactured alien threat.
It's a lot to process.
It is. And if you connect all those threads, as a listener, you see the source painting a picture of a world where external crises, geopolitical terror, maybe even aliens, dominate the narrative.
And whether those crises are real or manufactured, the source suggests the goal is always the same.
Increased fear, reduced liberty, forced compliance. That seems to be the underlying pattern identified in the material.
So what does this all mean? We end up with a source emphasizing manipulation, claiming we're building our own replacements with AI and robots, perfectly obedient, non-hysterical replacements. If that's the genuine internal existential threat,
right, the thing we are actively creating,
then why is the global focus, according to this source, being pushed so aggressively towards external threats? Is the manufactured fear of what might be out there just a massive diversion?
A diversion from the perhaps more inevitable and certainly more tangible technological and social changes we're creating right in here within our own societies.
That's the question, isn't it? The relationship between fear, control, and where we're told to look.
A complex relationship indeed. Something for you, the listener, to definitely think about. Thanks for taking this deep dive with us.
We'll see you next time.